Smooch and the Dog Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dog Show. Your hosts, Troup Brenson and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dog Show with Troup and Smooch. And we are back, folks, with a vengeance. And we are so glad to be here. And Smooch, if you didn't know, we record this on Wednesday night, August 13th.
13th, that is correct.
We are a month away from two things.
Tell
A
me.
month away from Smooch's birthday.
That's right. 1 month away from right now.
Also a month away from Georgia being in Neyland Stadium on their first road game, the first real game of the season, Georgia, and just a month away.
That's amazing to think about. I had to actually tell my friends and family, like, I love you guys, but you do not buy me tickets to Neyland. I gotta watch that one at home. I don't, that one. I'm gonna be in the stadium for Bama because it's at home. But Neyland tickets, it could be an experience, but I'd rather watch that where I can throw a fit and scream at the TV. And Georgia always gives up that early touchdown to Tennessee, and then usually puts the brakes on and writes the thing. But Troop, the season's here, man. It's here. Yeah, 1 month away from that. We got two warm up games, and then Tennessee.
And even we can just say the season is 2 weeks away, and it's just a warm-up game for Georgia. It's still a huge opening weekend for college football, and so I was on Amazon this morning. I'm like, I wonder if I need a new surround system.
I think you do.
Just looking at how for those first few games, or really the whole season, if I wanted to invest in that, because it's going to be a huge season, and only 2 weeks away. Georgia plays Marshall, so a home game against Marshall.
The Thundering Herd, right? And the Thundering Herd.
And Georgia's going to be hugely favored in that ball game. But there's so much else going on in college football. I think you folks, as we will be able to appreciate that and just enjoy kicking it off. And there's games starting off at midday that first week when we are very, very focused on Texas and Ohio State. Right. Ohio State and Texas. And so,
wow. Yeah, that's never really happened, right? The 1 and 2 or 1 and 2 teams that high ranked meeting up in the season opener. That's never happened to my knowledge.
Yeah, and so Texas on the road for that ball game against the defending national champ. So we can't wait for that. Let's preface the show tonight, Smooch, as we are on episode 148,
149, my brother,
149. You corrected, 149.
You didn't see it? There was just a graphic on the screen with it. You weren't watching the intro?
I wasn't. I missed that part. So we had the first scrimmage this past weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what we heard. We weren't there, but what we heard from the first scrimmage. And then we're also going to speak on, what we know about this team. What do we know about Georgia? We got a couple weeks out before you actually play football. What do we know about this version of Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs? We'll speak about that.
Yes.
And also an AP poll. We already had the coaches poll come out. Georgia's number 4. In that poll, the AP poll come out a little bit different. We'll talk about what the poll means and what the voters had to say. I even looked at all the voters and how they rated all those teams. Which
really, you dove in.
Somebody put it out there, and I read it, and I didn't get a whole lot from that. I just kind of looked at which media rated Georgia the lowest or the highest, and kind of saw that kind of thing. So yeah. And then we'll finish it up with a delusional fan alert, and we're going to talk again about there's something happening in Tennessee. We'll address that.
This is above and beyond the normal drama that's happening in Tennessee, people.
Yeah, we'll cover that, and also, strangely enough, a Big Ten team, Nebraska, a Nebraska fan had something to say, and we'll talk about that and let him know that you're as famous as you're ever going to be right now. You're on the Dog Fan Delusional
You have
Fan
made
Alert.
the Dog Show, buddy. Congratulations.
We're gonna put him on that. And that's that's the show. We invite you folks to join us on all our platforms, but YouTube especially, where we have had exponential growth in the past year, and having a good time on there. Twitter, I will never call it X. I don't think.
That's hard to
Twitter
do.
and TikTok, both with lots of conversation, and we have a good time on there. So don't fail to follow Dog Show on that. But YouTube is really where it's happening. If you want to watch some video and see the graphics and all the things that we have to offer, I feel like YouTube is that place right now. But
it really seems to be the hub for the conversation too. One of the things we love is the relationships you build with other Georgia fans all across. We have Georgia fans that are medical we have Dog Show fans that are medical doctors. We have Dog Show fans that are long haul truckers and wait for our shows to come out to listen to on the road. All of those things lead to all this so much great perspective and the discussion, which is when we're not talking with you guys online about Georgia football, we're talking with each other about Georgia football. That's kind of what we do. So YouTube is kind of the hub for that. Our videos, some of them get up close to 200 comments. That's really what we like on an episode, just to really get the dialogue going, because football's a game and games are supposed to be fun. And if you're a Georgia fan and not having fun with us, you're not getting the full Bulldog experience, Troup Brinson.
Yeah, I was talking to Smooch in the pre-show that August is not my favorite month. I mean, I would, out of the 12 months, August would probably be 12th. It's the last one in terms
the first one you would cut if you had
I would cut it. I'd cut
it.
it. The weather is awful. It's atrocious in terms of the humidity and the still just oppressive heat. I don't like that. It's usually after I've already taken my vacation. Since me and Smooch got back from Alaska
Right.
at the end of July, and so I'm depressed about that. There's no football yet, even though we're anticipating it. And maybe you got baseball sometimes. The Braves stink this year.
Yeah, that's the hard. That probably heightened your disdain for this particular August.
Yes, and I was like, I just feeling the blues. I'm like, we got to talk some football, and luckily we do have a scrimmage report. Georgia had their first live scrimmage this past Saturday. I think Smooch may have some specifics on it and what not specifically what transpired, but who did well and what we saw in scrimmage number one.
Yeah, so this is a combination of questions we were asked on, say, TikTok, X, and YouTube, and what we know. So we mentioned this I believe it was the last episode, maybe 2 episodes ago. We talk about all this wide receiver depth. Sometimes London Humphreys seems to get left out of that equation. You're excited about a 5-star like Talon Taylor, but London Humphreys has been running with the ones, and that happened in the scrimmage. He came out with the ones. At one point, he did have a 40-yarder from Gunner. Defense looked pretty darn good this day, but he did have a 40-yarder from Gunner. Speaking of Gunner and receivers, another newcomer, Noah Thomas. Noah Thomas had a catch exactly like what you want to see from Noah Thomas. One of those back of the end zone, using his incredible wingspan to come down with the ball. That looked great. Another question we got, Troup, was about Juan Gaston, a very, very large human, and how are they going to be using him? So I reached out.
True freshman, right?
True freshman.
They said he, and when he came, when he arrived on campus, he was like 370, 380.
Close to 400 pounds when he got here. I think Kirby said he had lost 30 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Stripping the weight off, but he is a mammoth human being. And so, we do see a lot of hype around freshman offensive linemen when they come in and then they really don't play a lot. That might not be the case this year. So as soon as I really started looking into it and talking to our people, Gaston is running with the 1s and the 2s. So he's in the mix, to answer your question on, I believe this was on YouTube. He's in the mix.
I think he's rotating with like Calhoun and Uini.
Yes.
And so they're trying to mix those guys in there to see who is fits best for this team.
Uini came out with the ones, and then Gaston quickly came in a few plays. That rotation, I would think of it. It probably looks similar to what they used to do with Amarius Mims when he was a youngster, working him in even on the first drive. They would work him in but that was at the tackle position, of course.
But I do think that if it wasn't for Monroe Freeling or Ernest Green, that he may get his first look at tackle. And when those guys move on, I think he may end up being a tackle.
Yeah, we saw the success that Isaiah had out there at right tackle. Right, very similar in size. And so Kirby loves those big guys protecting out there. So you very well can see him at tackle before the end. And like you said, the fact that he can move at all is amazing considering what he carries around when he does. But Mammoth, man, and he's looked good. And he has not looked overweight. You know, he carries a lot of weight. He's got a big paunch. He's got a big belly. But he still moves relatively light on his feet for a man of his proportion. But speaking of men that move on their feet, Troup Brinson,
yes,
I will tell you this, Dog Nation, listen to me. For series of plays, for 3 and 4 plays at a time in these chunks, Kristen Miller was unblockable. I don't mean he got pressure. I don't mean he won his matchup. He was unblockable for spurts of time, and it wasn't a misnomer where it happened once. He was against somebody that maybe was winded, or they switched him out with a third or fourth string. No, Kristen Miller was unblockable against the best Georgia offensive lineman on several occasions, wreaking absolute havoc. And I believe we called him his freshman year because we watched maybe his might be his sophomore year. I had watched so much of his high school film. I called him Kristen First Step Miller because he just has that explosive first step, and it looks like he's putting that together with a repertoire of pass rush moves. So that felt good because you want to hear, well, who's going to be that Jalen Carter type of guy? You're never going to have another Jalen Carter, but who is going to be that Jalen Carter type of guy? And so when it comes to that, Troup, we really put a lot onto the newest freshman, right? Elijah Griffin, coming in this year as 5-star dominant guy, and he impressed. He looked good. And the idea of Kristen Miller and Elijah Griffin in the game together this is the season of optimism right now, right? We're in happy, fun rainbow time with the first scrimmage, and the two of them together, that could really pose a serious problem.
Especially on downs where that the propensity is to throw the ball. Yeah. Because it's most teams, because they don't have many players like Kristen Miller or Jalen Carter kind of player, they're going to get pressure on the outside, around the edge. That's where it's going to come from. Are you going to have a linebacker finding some space to get? But you don't have many guys in the middle,
right,
who can create that, who can get in the backfield and create problems there. That's a game changer when you can do that. And so if you got somebody who is like Elijah Griffin, who is a freshman at 305 and has that quick step just like Miller does, and Miller only came back to be that guy this year.
You're exactly right.
He could be in the NFL right now earning a paycheck, but he was, betting on himself to earn a bigger paycheck.
He's got first-round talent. He would not have been drafted in the first round this past year. That's how he looked at it.
That's right. And playing with all the spotlight games that Georgia's going to play in, if he has the season that he anticipates, everybody's going to know his name. He's going to be on the top of everybody's list.
Yeah.
And but a player like you mentioned, on offensive and defense with Juan Gaston, and then with Elijah Griffin, who was one of the top recruits in all the country last year. Those are guys that you either got it or you don't. And both of those cats, they're too good to keep off the field. It's not you're not playing them because you don't have other bodies to put in there. Other people who are very good at what they do.
Right.
Sometimes you got players who are just too good to keep on the bench because they do things that nobody else does. And that's, we saw some things. We had an idea. So the offense, Smooch, from what I heard on the first scrimmage was they did good things. but it wasn't consistent.
All right.
And so they do a couple good things, and the defense would run the show for a little while. Then the offense would make a few good plays.
That's exactly
but we anticipated that because until that first scrimmage, all we heard about was the offense, and the defense is kind of getting tired of hearing it. And Georgia has a very, very talented defense, very young, very talented, very hungry defense. And they are not going to listen to that for long.
That's right.
And so you strap pads on them and put them in game situations, and they're going to show you who they are and why they came to Georgia to play football. And so you saw a lot of that. And but that's what we always talk about. That's not a negative thing. Iron sharpening iron.
Right.
What you have is you have an ebb and flow sometimes especially in on the same team working up to a season. You have ebb and flow always.
Yeah.
In terms of the production, because they are both very talented groups, and one team's gonna adjust and they're gonna come back at you. And so that's iron sharpening iron. You're getting better against players that probably better than a lot of teams most teams you're gonna play during the season, which you will have to make adjustments during a game sometimes with those same kind of the same attributes that you're going against really good SEC players.
The on defense, to your point, the player that may have taken the biggest jump this year between year 1 and year 2 is Ellis Robinson. He is
that's saying coming from a 5-star #1 player.
Right. And the thing on him as a freshman was, look, he can man up on somebody and stay in their hip pocket.
He can cover, yeah.
He can cover. He's got great ball skills, but the physicality. You're not going to see him making those Dalen Everett tackles. That was kind of the thinking. And that's the reason we didn't see him as much last year, but he's making physical tackles behind the line of scrimmage. And he even picked off Ryan Puglisi at the scrimmage. So he could have taken a huge leap. We're hearing great stuff. That other cornerback spot this year is going to be a highly contested battle, as that whole secondary really is, Troup.
It may feel that way right now until we have some injuries, because there's going to be some injuries out there. And then we're like, oh, I'm glad we had so much depth.
Yeah,
because there's no team in college football that has 4 players at their cornerback position right now, where Georgia has. When you're talking about Everett, Daniel Harris, Ellis Robinson, and then DeMello Jones, all those guys feel like they should be not just a starter; they should be #1.
Yeah,
they should be that dude, and they all could be, and that's a good problem to have as long as they're on campus. But a lot of reports we heard in that first scrimmage was typical reports. Everything sounds great. Everybody's doing a great job. Everybody's performing, and this guy's doing the best he's ever done, and he looks wonderful. And
right.
You're getting those same reports from every school. You are, unless you're Tennessee, and then you're hearing how bad Aguiar is.
He's a dark horse Heisman, Troup. I showed you that post.
But yeah, most schools are telling you they're seeing the players they're looking for, and they're seeing good things from them. Things will change. The second scrimmage is always different. And Kirby even came out and he says what he's always going to say during the whole preseason is that we had good energy. Hopefully we had good energy. Usually we had good energy. We got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So when he says that, just know predictably Kirby's going to say, we're not there yet. We got a long way to go. He might be saying that in game 3.
Right.
And that's fine because he's not satisfied, and as a Georgia coach and a Georgia team that has a standard, you're not satisfied until you're on the last game of the season and you're hoisting a trophy. Then you're satisfied.
Yeah. When Kirby Smart walked off the field after destroying TCU, what was his final score? It was like 87-3. I can't remember exactly. When he walked off the field, then he was like, we made it. We're there. We don't have any further to go. That's what he sees as success.
Well, Kirby was satisfied in that game. I'm getting off it a little bit, but when they did a curtain call where you're starting quarterback, then during the game when Stetson comes out, you got already 50 points, 52, whatever, 50 points on the board, and you get the chance to do a curtain call
for the legend.
Or your legend Stetson Bennett, and then okay, he's good. Everybody's good, but then not after the first scrimmage, you're going to hear the same things over and over. A lot of the people who are there on hand, who are going to give us third-hand reports, are going to be ecstatic about everything they see because they're so ready for football they can't stand it.
Right.
And Kirby's going to say, oh, hang on, we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
The second scrimmage is, in golf terms, moving day.
Okay.
And it is, because you'll see that this weekend, where after that, people will start to settle where they're gonna anticipate they're gonna be for this season. That may change,
Right.
but that's gonna really matter, that second scrimmage, because the third scrimmage you're kind of, it's the preseason.
It's like a preseason, yeah.
And you're going like a walkthrough, not really, but you'll tidy up some things, and but that's this weekend scrimmage is going to be very important for a lot of players and for what the coaches are looking to see and coach up. So look forward to that.
It's been good news on the injury front this time.
Yes.
That is a unique to this season type of positive. That really is a positive. They have done really well thus far on the injury side.
Yeah, and the only injury I heard was that the backup center, Toller, I think Malachi Toller, is going to have some tightrope surgery on his ankle, and coincidentally. And me and Coach kind of had a laugh last year when we were talking about who's the backup center, and I was laughing because the backup center was Drew Bobo last year. I was like, who cares about the backup center? I'm seeing things differently this year because I know how I really know how important Bobo and Gunnar Stockton are as a tandem together in this offense. Because I read this today, somebody laughing at when you talking about Drew Bobo. And, he's just the only reason he's there, only reason he's playing because he's a coach's son. I'm like, no, he's really good. I felt the same way. I felt like he was on the team when he was signed with Georgia because his dad was going to coach here and because of the legacy. I did not think that he was a player who would ever see the field. I feel differently. Drew Bobo has got, when he played last year, when he had to come in and play, looked really good. And what everybody's saying right now is he is a player that you almost cannot lose. Your starting center this year, because there's not much behind that. Now you're looking at Tolliver getting hurt and having some surgery. So that's the position right now. I'm like, well, we got to keep Drew Bobo healthy.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy to say, but he is a very important cog, I anticipate, on this Georgia offense this season.
Yeah, the tightrope surgery for an offensive lineman, it's not as if it happened to a starting wide receiver, it's a bigger deal because it'll linger a little longer. It's a matter of weeks to get back on the field and do your thing again. But note, you're exactly right. I would even anticipate that at this point, if something were to happen to Bobo, the starting center, that you may even see the Dogs forced to kick one of these guards into, like Tate Ratledge, remember when he cross-trained at center? You might see something like that because it can get – your point was exactly right. It can get really thin at that position really quick on this team.
Yeah. So first scrimmage in the books. I think the question after that, if I can boil it down, is what do we know about this team now? What do we really know about this Georgia team without actually playing games? And I got a few points. We'll talk about it. Smooch, I think what we do know, we probably knew this beforehand, but this team is very young.
Yes.
But very talented. Very, very talented. We talk about the youth, but then the people we brought in, with some of the offensive players, like a Branch and a Thomas, those guys are, and then on the running back position, McCray, those guys have some experience, but otherwise very young and but very talented team. That's the first thing we do know about this 2025 edition of Georgia.
Top to bottom, if you take every position, this is the fastest team, fleet of foot team that Kirby's had since he's been here. Doesn't mean, take that for whatever it's worth, but this is the fastest team he's had. They're fast at linebacker, they're fast at cornerback, they're fast at safety, they're fast at tight end, and not fast from Brock Bowers and then nobody after that. They're fast down to about the 4 spot at tight end this year. They're athletic on the lines. They are lightning on the defensive end and outside linebackers. Lightning in 260-pound packages out there. So this is the fastest team, which is some sort of a indicator of talent. But like you said, Troup, is the youth going to make their hunger and exuberance for football increase, or is it going to reveal a level of unpreparedness and lack of maturity? That's what we're waiting to see as they kind of lay it all out this year.
Yeah, because the other part of that is it feels like the ceiling is unlimited when you got young players, but you also have guys who are unproven, and that is prone to fluctuation from game to game, and also prone to mistakes. And we'll have to live with that. And I think that's a part of when you got these older players, these players 2 or 3 years in, who you lose that depth because of the NIL and because of transfer portal kind of stuff. You're going to have to depend on. It's not just Georgia. The other teams are going to have to do the same thing, but probably with less talented players.
Exactly.
So we're okay with that. That's a trade-off there. I think Georgia still comes out ahead compared to most teams. So you will have that fluctuation with some of those young players now, youth. But the other part of that is they are very, very hungry, because a lot of these guys have not tasted success or a national championship. They tasted some success. Georgia won an SEC championship last year, and they beat Texas twice. And they know what that feels like and know what the standard is. They've been on campus, they've been in the buildings, they've been in the meetings. They know what it feels like to be a Georgia Bulldog, but they're still very hungry to claim that as their own. Yeah. And so very focused. I feel like a lot of this team, and we've heard it. And I guess one of the mottos this year is the fire, passion, and energy.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's going to be a part of this team. The youth, where they really lean into that youth part where they are hungry.
Yes.
They haven't defined themselves yet, and so they're hungry to do so, and they're focused on that and listening to everything the coaches say, and everything the coaches. Nothing sounds redundant at this point for all these young guys, because they haven't heard it for 4 years, right?
Right. And most of the players, think about this, most of the players on this team have never won a national championship. That sounds crazy to think about. 2022, that's 2023, 2024, 2025, where we are now. If you're a junior on this team, you have not won a national championship.
Yeah, so junior. Yeah.
Right. And so that should generate all sorts, one would hope, if you're a Georgia fan, all sorts of hunger and fire, passion, and energy to do just that. Go out and make your mark, because I don't want to sound spoiled, but my goodness, it's been a few years since we won a national championship. Yeah,
and we see players like if you do things the Georgia way, and we just had this week, because I've been watching. I follow Georgia players in the NFL. You saw James Cook, a very young player, but he's a Georgia Bulldog through and through, and he just renegotiated his contract. What's that? What did I say? $48 million.
Something like that.
You don't get that through NIL, do you? You don't.
No. By the way, I would play for half of that. I'd have no problem.
Yes, but we say this every week, and I said it incorrectly last week when I said the greasy wheel gets the grease. The squeaky wheel squeaky wheel has been getting the grease.
Yeah,
and so a lot of these young players are very pliable, and I don't even feel like the players who have been here 3 or 4 years are not, but more so you got players who are seeing what's happening around them.
Right.
And they're more pliable to the coaching and to the focus that Georgia's putting on it. Yeah. But I do think offensively is where Georgia's going to succeed or not this year. We went to the spring game where they were very, very vanilla still.
Sure.
And we saw the talent. We saw what Georgia has. And I know a lot of fans didn't get to go to that game, or I mean, I'm just basing it off of numbers. But we could tell even in the spring game that Georgia's defense was back. And we mentioned they maybe took a step back last couple of years. Not a bad defense, but not a top 10, top 5 defense where they were for a couple of those years. And I have no qualms with saying this Georgia defense is going to be nasty. Very nasty. And so the offense is where I'm thinking that you're going to see the most improvement, Smooch. So I did circle a few tandems of players that I think are very important. I go back to Drew Bobo and Gunnar
Sure.
Stockton. I think those two guys together are going to be hugely important in how they work together and their help in terms of the offense.
100%. That the battery and whatever, it's extremely. It's imperative upon a football team to have a guy that can identify blitzes, can identify defenses, call it out to his offensive line, and to have a quarterback under center that you'll go to war for. There we go. That you'll go to battle with, and those two working together, that tandem, Bobo staying healthy, Gunnar Stockton staying healthy. There's a lot that rests on just those two things, right? Just the two of them having a healthy season. I think this year we are going to get to see at the center position, we've seen great leadership over the last few years. And I expect Bobo, because of his pedigree, to continue that trend as being a great leader. What kind of player he is, we'll find out. But as a leader, I expect him to continue that trajectory for Georgia Bulldogs centers. With Stockton, I think we're going to get a massive upgrade, Troup, in the leadership side of things over where we were the last couple of seasons.
I feel that exactly like you said. I do feel offensively as well that I think obviously the lead dog, running back purposes is Frazier. I don't know who's going to step up and be that second.
That's an interesting conversation, yeah.
Or it's going to be I feel like Cash Jones is probably number 3 because he's kind of like the gadget player, him and Phillips. But it's either going to be Bowens or Walker or McCray. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, but I do know that whoever earns their way to play next to Frazier is going to be hugely important because of the running game where they've established that. And I'm excited to see it. But I think offensively you're going to see that shake out very, very soon. And by the Tennessee game, of course, you're going to know who is ready to be a tandem because Georgia is not just going to have one back. They get the ball 30, 40 times a game. So Frazier, and then
you want that Zeus, Cook, McIntosh type of thing going on. So how is that going to shake out? Right.
I'm anxious to see it. And Georgia's got some options. So that's the good thing about it.
Right.
And then, of course, you got Branch and Thomas. We're excited to see those two guys. I think those are the two receivers who are going to push their names out there. Going to be lots of other 100%. Guys who have a chance to have big plays and big catches during the season with Branch and Thomas. And, and then I also think the same thing in terms of tight end.
Yes.
And but I still think Delp and Lucky are going to be the workhorses that you're going to hitch your wagons to. And you're going to have all these other guys who can come in there and make plays and have great matchups. But Delp and Lucky are as that other part of not just the receiver crew, but they're attached to the line a lot of times too. And Georgia saw some issues last year in the running game with their tight ends blocking. Yes, they did not block that great. And they had some issues blocking from the tight end position on a lot of running plays. And it was just you do what you do what you're supposed to do. And some of these times these guys were failing to do that, underperforming. And we saw that, especially in the early part of the season, and it affected the running game. But I do feel good that there's so many folks there. And if you don't do your job, there's the next man up.
Well, I think what we saw, I agree with you. And I think what we saw last year at that tight end position is you want that Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington type of relationship. Can Delp and Lucky approach that type of production? It's possible, but what you had is all the way down to the third tight end. Last year it was Ben Urasek, right?
Yes.
Who missed block after block after block after block. It became a mantra on our group thread. By the way, if you'd like to join the Dog Show group thread, send your request and $100 bill to Dog Show. Anyway, but You saw that weak link. That third tight end was a huge weak link for Georgia. So who steps up? Is it, Riddell or whatever? Who steps into that spot? Because Georgia likes the third tight end position, and they like to be able to dominate at the offensive line when they use their tight ends like they did when Darnell was here. So
good. So good. And I do think this is the most talented and deep defense that Georgia maybe has seen since 2021. I really do. And so I talked about offense, but I think that defense is so deep and so talented. They maybe have some very youthful positions on the line of scrimmage, and I don't feel that way really in the defensive backfield. More in line of scrimmage, they got some youth, but so much depth and so much talent there that I feel like this is a team that after this year, you're going to be wondering, oh my goodness, this is the next, when these guys get drafted, it's going to be one of those epic years. Yeah. And you're going to have all these first round type talent, because there's players right now that are not household names, and maybe to the casual fan, you don't even know their own Georgia's roster, that will make names for themselves this year. And I do think the coaching staff is going to find that right combination, and whether it's 2 deep or 3 deep, and they're going to put them through it. They're going to put all these guys in a box, and the best players are going to come out as those monsters that we are accustomed to seeing on that Georgia defense. So I'm not worried about that at all. I'm curious about it. But I'm going on record right now as saying I think this is the most talented and deep defensive roster since 2021. That's what
I would completely agree with that. I think that the defense this year, the ceiling is really unimaginable with the defense this year. Where's the floor? And I think that's the question. You know, if a few guys don't pan out, or we have some problems discipline-wise, whatever it could be that can rip your defense apart, what is it? Let's not forget, in Georgia's championship run, right in the middle of it, they lost a 5-star defensive pass rusher and never missed a beat. He
became an assistant coach, didn't he?
Yeah.
Nolan Smith.
Exactly. They pushed right through and kept playing. So can this team absorb the unfortunate things that happen? All those, like you said, very curious. But if you were a betting man, the talent is there. Is the gray matter, is the heart, is all of that there to make these guys reach their potential? Because we've seen that in 21 and 22.
And the last point of what do we really know about this team right now? Kirby effing Smart. That's all you really need to know. That's all you need to know. Is Kirby Smart look motivated? Does he look focused? And is he doing the things necessary to put this team back in the championship mix? And I don't think there's any question from what I've seen, what I've heard from him. He's the variable. He is that dude.
Kirby Smart, lost his father in the postseason, and then shortly after was the Notre Dame game, right? We all remember how that turned out. Can you imagine in a mind, which we talked about last week, the Kirby Smart is basically mentally ill, but in a way we all appreciate and love.
He's insane, you said.
Yeah, he's insane. He's insane. And so that the way the season ended has stuck with him. And sometimes there is nothing that encourages you more than that bitter taste in your mouth. And he's got it. And that, like you said, it starts and ends with your coach. And yes. We'll take the one we've got over anybody else.
All right. Well, we saw the coaches poll last week. Smooch and had Georgia at number 4. And the AP poll come out this week, and it was close, very similar. AP poll, Texas again, number 1. A lot of folks are buying all that Texas stock.
Yeah.
They did flip Georgia and Clemson from 4 to 5. Those guys are switched. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with all that. None of that matters. They got Penn State number 2, Ohio State number 3, Clemson 4, Georgia 5, Notre Dame 6, right in there. Alabama, if you want to care about that, they're 8th. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with all that. It's either you're respected or disrespected. It's more of a fan thing, because when you play on a schedule like Georgia plays, it's going to sort itself out. You just got to be one of those top 12 teams at the end of the season. So, again, it's just for the fans.
Right.
Especially this early, right?
Yeah, and it's good. It's motivational material. I mean, you've got one poll where Georgia's not in the top 2 or top 3, and then the next poll they move down from another poll from a different organization. That's just motivation. We want that to happen. The 7-5 predictions, the 8-4 predictions that these players have believed were made about them, they really do serve as motivating things. A few absolutely silly things on this list. Florida at 15 without maybe, we don't even know what the status of their quarterback is at this point. That's a joke. South Carolina could whip the 5 teams in front of them, the 4 teams in front of them. that's kind of a low placement. And then Penn State at 2. I'd love to have someone explain to me how the defending national champion should be ranked behind Penn State. I just love to hear it. And then, of course, Texas at 1, because Arch Manning is the greatest quarterback maybe ever, Troop. And apparently we're just going to prepare ourselves to witness greatness this year.
Smooch, what happens? What's Texas's plan if Arch Manning gets hurt?
Well, that can't happen, Troop. He's the best ever.
Even if he doesn't get hurt, it's an uphill climb for them,
right,
in the SEC. Even though they got a schedule that's conducive to winning, still they've got a lot of games they could lose, and I'm here for it because if you build somebody up that high, I'm begging to tear them down.
Yeah,
and I think Texas is a solid team in the mid top 10. But they have not the best teams they played last year.
They lost 2. They lost both of them.
Both to Georgia.
They played 2 quality teams before the playoffs started, and they lost both games.
One in their own house that they should have won.
One
easy.
In their own house.
If they're that good.
Right.
Good.
And they got smoked in their own house.
Because guess what? Not only did they had Arch Manning last year, who they're basing everything off this year, Smooch, they are basing everything off Arch Manning being that guy this year. Not only did they have him last year, not as a freshman, but they had him last year. They also had Quinn Ewers,
right,
who was the highest rated player in high school history.
They had him too.
They had both those guys at quarterback, and
they played them both.
And they had their toughest games at home. And
right.
It didn't work out that well for them. So.
And had it not been for the officials stepping in to help and the fans, basically pooping in their hands and throwing it on the field, which is some sort of just awful thing to see happen. Had it not been for that, the game wouldn't even been as close as it was. It was never close. Georgia
30-15, 30-15, 31-15 right in there.
Right.
30-15, I think. Yeah.
And Georgia dominated that game from top to bottom before they got involved. But my point is, you don't have that luxury this year. You have to play Georgia and Ohio State in the regular season.
On the road, both of them.
Both of them on the road, and you got a snow cone's chance in Hades to come into Athens and get out with a win. You can put that down as a loss right now. 0. So that makes that Ohio State game imperative. But it's watching what the SEC brass did last year with coddling and providing Texas this cupcake schedule to try and prop them up and move them into the discussion. And they did. They successfully got this team that could not beat Georgia into the SEC title game. Georgia played 2 other teams in the SEC that could beat them last year. They didn't get to play in the SEC title game. No, Georgia got Texas, and they took care of business both times. So I'm just a big believer of how about we look at what we've seen?
Yeah, and there's a lot of fans across the board who are going to, not just SEC fans, who look at the poll and with skepticism, and this is a preseason poll. So those things are going to change, and we're going to, if you look at all things considered, I can see why some pundits would say Texas is number 1, but it's more off hypothetical fantasy stuff than it is about real football. But that's okay. It's a good narrative, and it's entertainment in the end.
Yes, it is.
So we're okay with that, because I wouldn't be okay with that as much if we didn't get to play Texas and put all those fantasies to bed.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with anybody you talking about as long as we get to play you on the field, which what it should matter. So we say every year, eventually football will happen, and all that talking is done. And, you have new nightmares then. So
I love it. Hey, by the way, any dog show fans that want to kick a couple of tickets to the Texas game to Troop and I, we would be more than happy to join you.
Yes.
So, just so you know.
So we will buy the beer for you.
We will do it.
Moving on, Smooch, you got a delusional fan alert to give us?
Yes, I do.
So delusion is a fixed false belief that doesn't change in light of conflicting evidence.
They don't know reality from their dream worlds, and they won't go outside and play.
A fixed false belief that is not grounded in reality.
The number 1 segment in all of podcasting, the Delusional Fan Alert. We know that because of stats.com and because you fans tell us this. So,
yes.
And it ties right in with the polls, Smooch, because a lot of college football thinks that SEC is unfairly represented in polls, and that kind of is a never-ending cycle that makes their schedules and their strengths of schedule look tougher.
Right.
This usually comes through the Big Ten. And you can look at all the historical facts in terms of who's winning and how many teams win and what the depth is. And it always comes out that SEC is much more deep, wins more championships, has sent more players to the NFL than and has a thicker quality about them, about the whole conference. And even more so since I assume we added Texas and Oklahoma. But Big Ten always has something to say. We had a fan that is usually a team from Michigan or Ohio State, which is the two teams that anybody cares about.
That's the only ones that can win. Yeah.
Nobody believes in Penn State. I don't care what the pundits say right now. If Penn State has one of those magical seasons and wins this year, we'll be surprised because evidence hasn't shown that to be.
I'll be surprised if they make the playoff. I'm saying that right now. Yeah.
But it was another Big Ten fan, and this is a Nebraska fan who decided to wade into the deep water, which everybody kind of snickered because it's been not Tom Osborne's not coaching anymore.
I was glad to find out they still had a team. That was awesome.
So it's not the 80s anymore. But anyway, since they got Dylan Raiola, they think that their opinions matter at this point. But anyway, this was Trent, Big Red Trent on Twitter, if you care. And he says that every year SEC teams are overhyped and thrown into that top 25 for no reason. I don't know who he could figure that was, but all to make their schedules seem tougher than they are. And so Trent weighed in there, and then the conversation got going.
So let me get this straight. So he's probably talking about Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas A&M.
It's got those three teams. You can stop there. It's really those three teams, right?
Right. That's the bottom three teams in the top 25. All of which would win by double, possibly triple digits against Nebraska. But continue.
But that wasn't even – a lot of fans think that. I've heard even coaches say that. Well, it's just like a cycle. You put that preseason ranking out, and then it's hard to get past that. Those guys hang around, and so you can always base your strength of schedule by these teams that are ranked. You know, if that's what matters, these are your ranked wins. And so I see that. But then he said they think they want a Big Ten schedule until they realize they don't get to play the University of the Blind and the Deaf in November. So he thinks Big Ten schedules are stacked up tougher than SEC schedules. Basically, I think it's only because I've heard this before too, because they have the easier games up front, and the SEC sometimes will schedule a weaker team before maybe a big game late in the season as like a kind of a bye in a way. And so he's taken issue with that, the schedule.
And then you gotta be kidding.
So I pulled up Nebraska schedule, Smooch.
Yeah.
And I'll send this to you. Nebraska, and it's weird when you can look at some of these schools that have the initials and you don't even know who they are.
Right. Yeah.
And so I do know who Cincinnati is. And, you know, they won all 7 games last year. Not worried about it. They lead off with Cincinnati. Then they play Akron, another juggernaut of a team to start the season.
Yeah. They're like a rabbit, right? And there's some sort of, it's like rabbits or something.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know.
But then the third team, once you really start playing your big schools, then if you're going to have a schedule that matters, they play a team that's called HCU. I think that's Houston Christian.
Okay.
You're seeing Houston Christian listed anywhere as a team to watch out for this year?
I can honestly say I don't think I've ever seen them listed anywhere, but I've seen HCU. I take that back, but I still don't know what they are or what they do.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's Houston Christian. I may be wrong there. And then they do finally play their first game, which is the top 15 team in Michigan. I think they actually host Michigan, so they have them at home. Nebraska does. Then they go to Michigan State. Then one of the other 2 tough games that they have to go on the road for. If you call these teams you worry about, think about these games if you were an SEC school. So that's what we're trying to balance out. Okay, what if we're in the SEC playing the same schedule? Would we be concerned about going to Maryland?
No.
Minnesota?
No.
Not at all. Not at all. Maryland, Minnesota.
We go to Kentucky, and Kentucky gets written off as a bad team, but they would beat every team you just named.
What about hosting Northwestern? Would that get our attention?
No. I might not. I mean, I'd have trouble watching that game.
They also host an unranked USC. Now, despite what Zulu Trojan says, they're still USC, and
they're a 500 team at best.
But they might be the second best team they play, because I don't know if Michigan. They got a freshman quarterback at Michigan.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to transpire with that. I don't think Michigan's
the cupboard is empty at Michigan. They have not reloaded.
They're trying to reload, yes, but they haven't yet. And so maybe USC is their second toughest game.
Wow.
Then they do have to go to UCLA. Is any SEC team worried about playing UCLA?
They are not.
Losses.
And they're 8 losses. No. They did a few things in the portal, but no, there's no concern there whatsoever.
Now here's where their attention is really had right here.
The deep water.
Deep water is going to a team who we laugh at, who is ranked number 2 in the country right now, and that's Penn State.
Wow.
So that's the team that I would say you got to go to Penn State, but I wouldn't. If I was Nebraska, I'm like, I got a chance to beat Penn State. Penn State is one of those plotting teams that, has to do everything right. They have to cross all their T's and dot all their I's to win most games that are competitive. Yeah. They do, really do. They don't have the ability to just mail a game in. They really have to play their A game.
Plotting is the perfect word for that team. Yeah, they're slow historically, and they have to nail everything to have a chance to win.
Even if you agree that Penn State, and it's debatable, they have the best running back room in the country. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if I agree with that. Sometimes those names sound good right now, but anyway, so they have Penn State. That's the game they are hinging everything on. Wow. And then they host Iowa to end their season. Oh. And that's the schedule that they think the SEC would fear if they switched places.
Let me tell you something, Troup Brinson. And what's this guy's name? Red something?
Big Red Trent.
Big Red Trent. Listen to me, brother. And I'm telling you this because I love you.
Because we care.
Because we care. We care. Listen, in the SEC, brother, the historically worst team in the SEC beat Alabama last year. Okay? Vanderbilt beat Alabama. That tells you what the SEC brings to the table. Okay, when you look and you see a Kentucky having an off year and losing a few games, or you see the record at Vanderbilt and you think these are pushover teams. No, every team on your schedule, with the exception of Penn State, Vanderbilt would smoke. So before you bring it to complaining about your schedule versus an SEC schedule, get to where you would be a favorite against the SEC's worst team. And then we can have this conversation.
This is like all you Big Ten teams get in a circle and talk about this, and it makes you feel better. You're the second best conference, but there's a huge gap between the second best conference and the first best conference, or the best conference. And not that your best teams can't win, and they've proven that the past couple of years.
They just did, yeah.
After that, you have a lot of easy weeks. And the fact that we're not playing Houston Christian, that doesn't matter.
And the Akron Zips, by the way, the zip is a kangaroo, not a rabbit. I think it's a kangaroo. Yeah, it's something that's zippy. It zips along.
But it's not even that. It's that the fact that you get to go to Minnesota and you think that's okay. It's the fact that you're doing that at a certain point of the year, and Georgia maybe is playing a team that they should beat. Yeah, you shouldn't be worried about Minnesota either. Mm-hmm. If that's not a game that you've already got circled as a W, I don't know what to tell you. You're not a legitimate team. And you got several of those in the Big Ten. Well, you just go ahead and circle those as W's. They can be directional schools. They're not. Right. But they might as well be, because they're not going to challenge you. You should be playing your second and third string in the second half. So it's the same effect. Nobody is lost on that. You're not fooling anybody. We get it. And again, Smooch, we're telling you this because we care.
We do.
We really don't want you to continue to make fools of yourself on the national level.
No,
we know you got 2 schools that matter, and the rest of you guys, I'm even counting Penn State in this because we laugh at
Penn State's a joke. Yeah,
Michigan and Ohio State. Rest of you guys might as well be the Akrons of anybody else's schedule, because they shouldn't challenge you. So
Yeah, I've always wondered, does the fact that Ohio State and Michigan, especially Ohio State, always have such a dominant team have to do with the fact that they don't have to play anybody that can trade punches with them during the year? Like, you skate through against these softer teams, and maybe you're more fresh at the end of the year. I don't know. But here's what I do know. Georgia's third hardest game this year would be Ole Miss. So you got Alabama. You
I don't
got
even
Texas.
know, dude. It could be freaking Georgia Tech. I don't know. It's
Tech would be fourth or fifth at worst. Tech's a solid team this year. My point is, Ole Miss cakewalks through your schedule and beats Nebraska by 30. All right, there is no conversation. That's the difference between quality from top to bottom. You look at records. You see different records in the SEC because SEC teams play against other SEC teams. Records have nothing to do with it. You talk about players on the field, and we'll just look at history. Look at history of when these teams have played each other. You've seen the difference. Tennessee, Iowa. Tennessee goes and plays Iowa, and people are acting like it could be a close game. It was never a game. Tennessee destroyed them. Didn't even make the playoff that year. There you are.
Yeah. So that being said, you're on the Delusional Fan Alert for the first time in Nebraska, and the big red Trent. Congratulations, and it's all downhill from there, my friend. And we'll turn now. We don't really need the bumper because Tennessee is at home when it comes to the Delusional Fan Alert.
This is really their alert. It's the Tennessee alert.
I anticipate every time we play it that our fans are going to know that Tennessee is going to be a part of it. Yeah. And this is more because Tennessee saw last year, you got to get those right players in there, and they got to be a part of the culture, and they got to be a part of that. And sometimes you have to dispatch those folks. But Nico, that kind of happened with him, and his people got involved.
Yeah.
His dad, they ever talked about his dad a little bit, kind of coming in there and saying he denied everything was going to happen and talked about Pete Nakos for breaking that news and gave him a hard time. And then it turned out to be true. So he looked like an idiot. And you found out that maybe his dad was not a great influence in terms of his football career, because now he's playing for UCLA for a third of the money and a third of nowhere near the spotlight. Anyway, Tennessee does travel with these top players. They do it. I mean, or I say travel, I mean that it seems to be prevalent among their culture.
Yeah.
So we found this. There's some drama. There's a drama about it. And one of their highest rated recruits he's a sophomore this year was Boo Carter, a defensive back. Didn't play a ton last year. His mom doesn't like it, apparently.
Right.
Boo's mom, Sharika, has been all over social media this week.
That's never a good sign.
And it's never a good sign for your team or your players when you do that. And so, Sharika, we're going to send this out there. And here's what she was arguing about anyway, because Boo has had some issues with being on time or attending all the activities.
Showing up at everything, yeah.
Yeah, and he's denied some of that, and he's got some other stuff going on with his off the field.
Being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly. And now his mom was like, well, I don't even like Tennessee. I ain't a Tennessee fan. I love it. I'm a Boo Carter fan. Wow. She's putting all that out there for everybody to read. And then
my goodness.
And then she starts talking about Colorado. Like that's their next jumping off spot.
Oh, interesting.
She believes in Coach Prime. And he sent 8 players to the NFL.
So he's on the phone with it. Yeah. Dion was
legendary.
Yeah. I think Dion was involved heavily in the recruitment of Boo.
I need your undivided attention real quick.
Because Dion, I believe Dion was telling him he could play both ways. I might be wrong on that. But that's interesting. So he's probably back in the picture now. If there's drama, you're going to find Dion. But here we are.
It does not conducive. If your coach lets that go on for long, you know what the locker room looks like mid-season when things don't go well.
So 100% true.
So just a brief little talk about Tennessee and
look
Nebraska.
Inside the insanity. Exactly.
Yes. I did want to mention something as we close, Smooch, and this could be even left for another episode. But I just had some interesting information that came out about the transfer portal. And you'll be very interested to hear this, because who was what team benefited over the past 5 years? Which team benefited from transfer portal and NIL and all that? Which team in the SEC benefited the most in terms of recruiting? Let's go ahead. Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Remember, they had the highest
recruiting class of all time.
All time.
Yeah.
I'll send this out and you can look at it. So they had 30, and again, the highest in history. Recruiting class. They had 30 total commits, Smooch. 14 of those commits have transferred out or were kicked off the team or retired from football. By the end of the second season, almost half of those guys were gone. 8 more transferred in the third season. They've got one single player from that class.
Oh my gosh. One player.
Shamar Stewart.
And he had come down to Georgia and Texas A&M were his final 2.
Yes. Now they do have 7 remaining still on that team. They do have 7 Aggies still. Only 3 of those have made any kind of contribution to that team. That was Bryce Anderson, Le'Veon Moss, and Mark Nebu. So only 3 players are contributing on that team at this point.
That is unbelievable. That we said at the time, I remember us right about the time that Desmond Howard picked Texas A&M to win the national championship right after that class signed, which I didn't get because freshmen don't win national championships. But we said, whatever you use to get someone, you're going to have to use to keep them. That's how it works. If you use your culture and your tradition and your work ethic and the players you put in the NFL to get someone, you're going to have to show that to keep them. But if you use money and, backroom handshakes and every other sort of promise and treating someone like a prima donna when they're only 17 years old, guess what you're going to have? A bunch of immature, suddenly rich prima donnas that are going to abandon you and go somewhere else for greener pastures.
Because guess what you don't have? You don't have fire, passion, and energy
for
your program. You don't. You have players motivated by something much more different that is conducive to winning at any high level on the college environment. And it's just
so true.
It's just the way it is. If it's a business transaction, it's going to end up a business transaction at some point.
Perfect.
And Texas A&M was that red flag. They were the warning that it's very rare that you're going to win running a program like this. And plus, their coaching staff was laughable. And so they didn't have those guys who could corral those type of egos. And I don't think anybody can, honestly. I don't think Kirby Smart could corral those type
Not
of
the
in
ones
that same
they put together.
situation.
They were smoking pot in the locker room, for crying out loud.
So so that's just that. We just I saw that information and I got it from, I think, let's see. I really would like to give this out from UGA Sports. I think I'm not sure. It was Rivals or UGA Sports that pulled that up about Texas A&M. Next week's going to be a big week though.
Yes.
Smooch, because we're going to do all our predictions and maybe some unconventional predictions. We're also going to talk about Georgia's, because Georgia has put an emphasis on running the ball. We're going to talk about their running back room more in depth next week, and maybe talk a little bit about Nate Frazier and what he didn't do well last year, and what he needs to do better this year. On top of our predictions and our top, our poll, I guess the dog show poll, which is consisted of me and you. So
that's it. It's the most accurate poll in all of sports. Yes.
But yeah, so look at that, because we're a week. It would be just a little week away from kicking this thing off. We want to put our thoughts out there and let you guys have some conversation about it and go back and forth. Maybe we all change our minds, and we're welcome to hearing what you think and where you think we are wrong, where you think we're right.
100%. And it's about generating the conversation. And every year we make when we get to our bold predictions or hot takes or whatever, we nail 2 or 3 things every year. We can go back. We've got the receipts. We can go back and show them.
Yeah, I think 2 out of 20 is pretty good numbers.
Solid.
Very solid. But that's what it's all about. And that's why we're here, because we enjoy talking Georgia football. In the end, we are just 2 dudes talking Georgia football.
Heck yeah.
And we invite you guys to be a part of that. And, it's just that's what big time college football, SEC football.
This is college football at its absolute best.
This version of Georgia is all about. We can't wait. A couple weeks out, we'll be ready to kick this thing off. We'll be back next week with our predictions For Smooch Moncrief, this is Troop Brinson saying so long. We'll see you soon.
This is the Dog Show with Troup and Smooch.
Man, nice.
That was so good.